Okay, here we go. We're going to have a quick video here about cell junctions. Our objective here is that we can describe, let's see if I can change the color. I can describe the structure and function of the five main types of cell junctions. There we go. That's already at the top of your notes if you're using the note page I gave you. Let's get right into this. First type of cell junction is called a tight junction. In a tight junction, you have strands of transmembrane proteins that fuse adjacent cells together, kind of like stitching them together. These are good for a watertight seal. See what we did there? A watertight seal, right? Super tight seal. This would be in places like, say, your stomach or your bladder. This is kind of the appearance of it. So as you can see here, any fluid that tried to get in between individual cells will hit these tight junctions and will be repelled, and you are not going to get anything to sneak past the actual cells themselves, so nothing can squeeze in between. Again, we find this is really useful in the stomach as well as the bladder, anytime you need to make a watertight seal around a body cavity. Alright, our next type of junction is called adherens junction. An adhesion belt made of plaque surrounds the cell. Transmembrane glycoproteins, what we learned about earlier, in this case they're called cadherins, they join the cells together. This is good for keeping epithelial surfaces from slipping or sliding out of position. Let's take a look at what this kind of looks like. What we're seeing here mainly is this is going to keep one thing from sliding down and the other from sliding up. So I kind of like it like a shear force, if you will. Okay. You have this adhesion belt that runs around the cell. These green little adherents stick out from this plaque belt, and they kind of catch on each other, and they keep this thing from sliding. Again, the idea is we're keeping sliding motion from occurring. Okay, so things won't slide past each other. Okay, there's another close-up view of what we're seeing there with the cadherins interacting with each other in that intermembrane space. Okay. Our next type of junction is called a desmosome. Desmosome incorporates plaque, cadherins, and the cytoskeleton. So the actual cell's structure, its own support network, is invested in this junction, meaning that if you pull hard enough, the desmosomes don't break, the actual cell can start to break apart. So these are kind of like little spot welds. They keep cells from being pulled apart. So if I was thinking about the direction of pull, thinking this direction, keeping things from being pulled apart. We don't want them to pull apart, so we have a desmosome. So there we see a desmosome. You can see the keratin fibers, part of the cytoskeleton, coming off. They look like little wild hairs over there. And again, you're going to have these cadherin type of things. You can actually see a closer view. This adhesion protein, they're actually kind of interlinked to each other, which is going to keep cells from being pulled apart. All right, that's a desmosome. Our next one's called a hemidesmosome, and you could probably guess what a hemidesmosome is. All right. Hemidesmosome is probably a half a desmosome. So it's similar, except it's one half. So it incorporates plaque, cadherins, and the cytoskeleton. In this case, it's only going to be anchoring cells to the basement membrane. Anchoring to the basement. So only find them on the bottom of the basal cells. So here we see keratin filaments. We see the plaque. And then we see down at the bottom these glycoprotein sticking out into the basal lamina, this of course being part of the basement membrane that's secreted by the basal surface of the epithelium. Alright, so there's our hemidesmosome, half a desmosome. Alright, our last junction is called a gap junction. Membrane proteins form a tunnel between cells. They're called connexins. Allow cells to communicate with each other, share nutrients, and transfer chemical signals, electrical signals. You have this picture in your notes. But you get the idea here that anything that's on this side of the cell can actually travel through and come out the other side. Right on through these little gaps. You kind of see this happening down here. Basically, information can be shared between these cells. We're going to find gap junctions, especially in something called cardiac muscle a little bit later on when we talk about intercalated discs. So gap junctions are important to allow neighboring cells to communicate with each other. All right, so hopefully you got all that written down in your notes. Let's do a little review. So I want you to do a little quick review practice. So A, B, C, and D, and E. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture of a cell with a bunch of different junctions. So be ready to pause it and go ahead and write down your answers for what A, B, C, D, and E are. Okay, so right here's your cell. Again, you can maybe see we have A, B, C, D, and E. Go ahead, pause it, and write down your answer for what you think all those are. And here we go. Your answers for A, tight junction. B was an adherence junction. C is a desmosome. D, hemidesmosome. And E, a gap junction. All right, we'll go back to that picture. All right, so that's pretty much sums it up. Really straightforward and simple stuff to look at. I would expect you guys to be able to tell me where you would find these junctions. Notice, of course, that the hemidesmosome is only on the basal surface. You find desmosomes on lateral surfaces to adjacent cells. And of course, you might notice these little structures at the top. These are called microvilli. You can see how they're increasing the surface area of the apical surface. And that's all, guys. Good luck on the quiz.